Yeah. Om Jnanatimrandasya Kananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gulshan, would you like to read the English?
Yeah. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him.
Yes, yes. Okay, so now we're continuing on from last week. So we're at the final verse of the 4th chapter, which is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. So this is text number 42. Text 42 of the 4th chapter.
So sorry,
Bob, your
Sorry,
picture's disappeared. Are you hiding from us?
can you see us?
We can see half and
I
half.
can't see you. I can see
Half and
that
half.
you're in the background, but I can't see your picture.
And
I mean,
can
if
you
that's
see
the way.
Michael? He's there. He's
I can
No.
see. Yeah, I can
Oh,
see
I-
both Bob
I
and
can't see.
Michael.
Okay, Deepa can see, but we can't see. Okay, that's okay.
Do,
As long as
mate,
you
sorry.
guess now I
Just
can.
tell us the text again, please.
42.
It's the last text of the 4th chapter, which is text 42. Text 42
Text
of
42.
the 4th chapter.
Text 40. Bear with me.
Yep, that's all right.
Right, I got it.
Okay.
You haven't locked Gianni in somewhere, have you, mate?
No, there's some renovations happening. We've got a builder on site, so he's banging away in the background.
Thought you might lock her in the cupboard.
I'm here.
Don't give me too many ideas. Okay, so we'll just recap on last week, text 41. Text 41. So I'll read the translation for that. Text 41 of the 4th chapter. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus he is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. So this is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, speaking to his very dear devotee, Arjuna, who is one of Arjuna's names is Dhananjaya, means the conqueror of wealth, a conqueror of riches. So that's who he's addressing here, Arjuna, who had also accumulated great riches, as we talked about last week. So what it's saying here is that the essential point of spiritual practice is to get free from the reactions of our work. Because as we've talked about many times, it's so fundamental. It's those reactions to our activities, which is known as karma, whether it's good karma or bad karma. In any case, the reactions that come to that work or karma is what binds us to the material world. That's what keeps the soul in the material world, one body after another, which that cycle of birth and death, one body after another, reincarnation, is called samsara. So this is a very painful process. These are the 4 main miseries of life because of this process of birth and death, and in between that is old age and disease. So these 4 things affect everyone in a material body. It doesn't matter whether you're the richest person on the planet or the poorest person, or whether you're in the heavenly planet or in a lower planet or on the earth, or wherever you are, or whether you're in an animal body or any kind of body, a fish body, a bird body, a human body. Every living being in any kind of material body is affected by these 4 main sufferings of birth, death, old age, and disease. So in human life, what causes us to take another body is the reactions of our activities. So somehow or other, we want to get free from these reactions. So this verse is summing up how we can get free from these reactions.
You freeze, Abhi Prabhu. Bob.
Yo, I'm here.
Yeah, but the Abhi Prabhu freezes.
Abhi
And
is
that
from the
is
other
by
end.
acting in devotional service, by working in devotion. If we work in devotion, means work. Yes? Do you want to say something, Gulshan?
Yeah, you was frozen for 20 seconds. We didn't hear what you said.
Okay, I think there's something happening with the Wi-Fi, so we'll just have to make the best out of it. Giant Head mentioned it's a bit... Oh, you didn't hear what I said. Okay, so I better repeat it. So what, the last 20 seconds? Okay, last 20 seconds. Okay, so did you hear about how what binds us to the material world is the reactions to our activities?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
Yes.
So how to get free from the reactions is mentioned in this verse, text 41, by working in devotional service, by acting in devotional service. So this is what does it. See, why we get reactions is because we're acting to please ourselves, and that's called karma. When you act for your own sense gratification, to enjoy the fruits, to enjoy the results ourself, then you get a reaction. But if you still work, there's no difference. You still work, but instead of working to please ourselves, to enjoy the results or the fruits of our work ourselves, we work for the pleasure of the Supreme, which is acting in devotional service. So we act or work for the sake or the pleasure, for the satisfaction of the Supreme, not for ourselves. And the result of that is that we get free from these karmic reactions. And this is only going to take place, this working in devotion, if we have knowledge. If we have knowledge. A person in ignorance is just going to try to please himself. That's never going to change. But we need knowledge. And we heard earlier in the chapter that where you're going to get that knowledge from, who knows? Where are you going to get the transcendental knowledge from? That's going to bring you out of the ignorance of just working like a donkey for your own gratification.
From the Bhagavad Gita, are you talking?
From the Bhagavad Gita, yes. Well, where
From
does the
Guru.
Bhagavad Gita, who wrote the Bhagavad Gita?
Krishna.
Vyasadeva? No, Vyasadeva.
Originally, he wrote it, yeah. So he's like the original spiritual teacher, and the original spiritual teacher. And who wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is?
Prabhupada, the Guru.
Yeah, so the spiritual master. So we need a connection with a spiritual teacher to teach us this transcendental science. It's not an easy science. Just like whether you're going to learn biological science or chemical science or any kind of science at school, you need a teacher. You can't just look at the book. So you're not just going to become a graduate in physics or chemistry just from the manual, the book. You also need a teacher. So in the same, alongside the scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, you need a teacher to help you to understand and answer your doubts. So as mentioned here, the doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge. So we need to hear from the spiritual teacher, and then slowly our doubts, which have come from ignorance, will be dissipated. And as soon as the doubts have gone away, then we will act in devotion. Why we don't act in devotion is because of ignorance. Because of ignorance. But as soon as we hear from the spiritual master and from the scriptures, then slowly this ignorance will go away, and then we'll work in devotion. And as soon as we do that, then you get free from the reactions. And then as soon as you're free from reactions, then what happens? As soon as you're free from the karmic reactions,
and no birth and death.
Yeah, then no more birth and death. Then if no more birth and death, then what happens to you?
Soul will go to the Krishna, back to home.
Yeah, then we'll go back to our original home, which is in the spiritual world. Actually, the soul doesn't belong in this material world. We're like a fish out of water here. This isn't our real home. Our real home is in the eternal, blissful spiritual realm and full consciousness. It's called Satchit Ananda. Satchit Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chit means full consciousness, full knowledge, and Ananda means bliss. So that's our real home in that kind of environment. This material is the opposite to that. It's called Asat, Achit, Nirananda, which means temporary place, full of ignorance and full of suffering. So that's our choice, really. And ignorance, if we want to stay in that, obviously if we have knowledge, we won't want to stay in that kind of situation. You'd have to be insane. You'd have to be insane to want to suffer, voluntarily, when you have an option, which is to be happier. And naturally, we'd want to choose the happier option. So only because of ignorance we continue like that, undergoing birth and death. So if we're very fortunate, we get the association of the spiritual master and the devotees, and they enlighten us, and then they train us to act in devotional service. And as soon as we practice to act in devotional service, when we're mature, when we become mature in our devotional service, then Krishna will accept us back in the spiritual world. It's just a matter of time. We keep practicing this life. Once we have started up the process of bhakti yoga devotional service, we're practicing in the association of devotees, and they're training us. And then when we're fully trained and we're mature in devotional service, then we can be eligible to go back home, back to the spiritual world. And that's the perfection of life. That's the perfection of life. Okay, so now we'll look at today's verse. Does anyone have any questions about what I've just said?
42, I think.
Any questions? Any doubts? Anyone has any doubts about doubts? Okay, so let's go to text 42, the last verse of this chapter. We can read this English transliteration of the Sanskrit together, and then English. Okay, let's go. Tasmad jnana sambhutam ritstam jnana sinatmanaha chitvainam samshayam yogam atishto tishta bharata. Let's do it once more. Tasmad jnana sambhutam ritstam jnana sinatmanaha Chitvainam samshayam yogam atishto tishta bharata. Michael, would you like to read the English translation?
Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bhatra, stand and fight.
Yes. Thank you, Michael. So this is Krishna speaking again to Arjuna. Here he's known by another name, Bharata, because he comes in a dynasty of great kings. Arjuna is actually a king, and he comes in a line of great kings. So this is one of the most famous kings in that line, of which Arjuna was the most recent at that time, Bharat. Actually, until not too long ago, the whole earth was known as Bharatavash. Even in the Vedic literatures, they don't say the word earth. They say the word Bharatavash for the earth, Bharatavarsha. Bharatavarsha was the name given to the whole earth. Sometimes the earth's called Bhumi because the person in charge of the earth, in control of the earth, is a woman named Bhumi Devi. Bhumi Devi. So sometimes this earth is called Bhumi Loka, but it's also known as Bharatavarsha. So Arjuna is a great king, and the line coming from Bharata. So it's expected. Why Krishna is using this name? Why is he calling Arjuna Bharata? Because he's trying to psych Arjuna up, fire Arjuna up. You're a warrior. You're coming from a line of great warriors. You come from the greatest of warriors, Bharata. King Bharata, he was a great warrior. He would never run away from a battle. He would never leave a battle. He would stand and fight. So you're coming from that line, Arjuna. You come from the lineage. You've got the blood. You've got the blood of Bharat in you. You should stand and fight. So he's very much here. Krishna's trying to incite Arjuna to fight. And many people wonder why, Krishna's doing that. Why this doesn't seem very good, that Krishna's encouraging Arjuna to fight, because fighting, as we know, is not such a good thing to be fighting, isn't it? Normally we think about in spiritual life. When you think of spiritual life, do you think about fighting?
No.
No.
No, generally you think about peace and love and all these kind of things, right? So here, this is a spiritual book, but why is Krishna pushing Arjuna to fight? Arjuna seems like he's the good guy. It seems like Arjuna's the good guy, right? Arjuna, he wants to be...
He's saying that to do his duty to be fight on that time in the battlefield.
Yeah. So the main point here, this is the side point, is that Arjuna is a warrior, but that it could be anything. It could be you're a builder or something, or a doctor, an engineer. So there's so many occupations. It just happens here that Krishna's chosen to speak the spiritual knowledge on a battlefield to a fighter. But this is the scenario of the material world, because it is a world of ignorance, and there are going to be ignorant people, and there are going to be people that disobey the laws of nature, the laws of God, and act in a demoniac way. And something has to be done, isn't it? Just like in modern society, we have police force, we have army, and they're necessary, aren't they? Does anyone think the police force should be dissolved or the army should be dissolved?
No, the crime will be all over then.
Yeah, then no one would be... we're already feeling a bit unsafe. But if they completely pulled out, it would be so insecure, and criminals would be walking into our houses and raping and pillaging and stealing and killing and everything, and it would just be complete anarchy. So to try to keep it in a relatively peaceful situation, there has to be some people that are prepared to fight. And if someone steps out of line, then they have to take the hard line and deal with them like that. So there's a lot of background, of course, which is known as the Mahabharata. If you want to find out all the reasons behind why this battle took place, there's a great history and a great story called the Mahabharata. But there were very important reasons why this battle had to take place, and Krishna, being the all-knowing supreme and knowing what's the right thing to do, he had decided that the best thing to do to solve this bad situation, dilemma of all these demoniac forces on the earth, was to clean them out on this battlefield. So therefore he wanted Arjuna to do his duty, to fight, just like we encourage the police to do their duty, or the army to do their duty to protect us, like that. We should be very supportive to them, just like the farmers in recent times haven't been very, you could say, popular or in the limelight, because it's just a very labouring kind of job, and you don't make much money doing it, and so everyone sort of promotes IT and computers and and businesses that make a lot of money and everything like that. So being a farming job has sort of gone to the bottom of the pile. But when this COVID came up, all the viruses and everything like that, then we started to realize, how important the farmers are, that they're feeding us. We can't go to work anymore, and and we're stuck at home, but the farmers are still out there working. There was an essential service, right? So the farming activity, even though the office people couldn't go to office because it's not an essential service, and the factories and that are closed, but the farmers are still out working, because if that stops, what's going to happen if the farming stops?
No food.
We're all going to starve to death, So now farming is a little bit more appreciated and valued, like that. So just like you don't want to stop the farming, otherwise we're all going to die, you also don't want to stop the military. You don't want to stop those people that are protecting society. So they have an important part to play. But here Arjuna, he's playing the role of an ignorant person like us. Actually, Arjuna isn't ignorant. He's a very highly advanced soul. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. But Krishna here has covered Arjuna over with his Maya, his illusory energy, so that he can play the role of an ordinary ignorant soul who has many doubts. And here Krishna is enlightening Arjuna, and through Arjuna he's enlightening all of us, because now we're hearing that 5,000 years later, and we're getting enlightened about the importance of doing our duty, but not just for our own enjoyment, but for the satisfaction of the Supreme. And how are we going to get rid of this ignorance in our hearts? It says with the weapon of knowledge. So it's interesting here, analogy, that knowledge is compared to a weapon. It's compared to a sword. Just like a sword can cut the enemy, so knowledge can cut through the ignorance. Actually, ignorance is our real enemy.
The Shastra is the Shastra.
Yeah. So there's two. That's a very good point. There's two words in Sanskrit. One has a long A, one has a short A. So Shastra, which is the scripture, and Shastra, which means weapon. So it's basically the same thing. That this knowledge is a weapon that can cut through ignorance. And that's our number one enemy. Our number one enemy is ignorance. Because of that ignorance, we act for our sense gratification, and we've forgotten our relationship with the Supreme, and we get entangled in our actions and reactions in our karma, and we suffer life after life. So it's ultimately all of our problems are stemming from ignorance. If you deal with the ignorance and become enlightened in transcendental knowledge, then all the problems become solved. Actually, this transcendental knowledge deals with every single problem. You might think, oh, this is just a 5,000-year-old book. It's not relevant anymore. It's sort of out of date. It's not keeping up with the times or whatever.
You know,
but this is
it doesn't have expiry. It doesn't have expiry.
Yeah, it doesn't have any expiry.
No, it's true. It's true. 5,000 years doesn't expire. What do you think? Of course.
This deals with the fundamental issues of the material world, which have always been there, of ignorance of ourself and the Supreme Self and our relationship with that Supreme Self. And if we sort out that, our relationship with the Supreme Soul, and instead of turning away from the Supreme Soul, from the Supreme Lord, and turn towards Him and engage in loving service, instead of forgetting Him and just indulging in a selfish life of sense gratification, then, like I said, we can go back to the spiritual world. And if we go back to the spiritual world, where is the hunger problem? Where is the crime problem? Where is the sickness problem? Where is the old age problem, the birth problem, contraception problem, the politics problem, the coronavirus? You know, all these problems are affecting us because we're in a material body in the material world. But if you can get out of the material world, then you're out of all the problems. Yeah. See, a lot of people, what they do, they concentrate on trying to stay in the material world and trying to solve the problems here. Let's try to stop crime. Let's try to stop the coronavirus. Let's try to stop diseases. Let's try to stop cancer and AIDS. Let's try to get free from old age. Let's try to solve the political problems and the environmental crisis. And so it goes on and on. The list is going on and on of different problems, and people spending their whole life. Just like now, there's probably thousands of scientists around the world trying to stop coronavirus, or trying to come up with, what do they call it? A vaccine.
Vaccine.
Trying to come up. Yeah. But that is actually
the vaccine gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, you can't solve the problems. Even if you can solve the coronavirus, another problem will replace it.
Mm.
Probably another 10 problem will replace it, even worse.
That's
You
why the
can't
Ayurveda goes to the root, the cause of the problem. That's the Ayurveda.
Yes. Yeah. So actually the root cause of our problem addressed here is ignorance. Ignorance of our relationship with the Supreme. As long as we're ignorant of the Supreme, we have to stay in this material world, and we have to suffer from birth and old age and disease and death. And there's nothing you can do when you're in the material world to counteract these problems. As long as you're staying in the material world, these problems will always be there according to scriptures. And Krishna declares that in the 8th chapter, text number 14, or is it 15? I think text number 15. He says it's dukkhalayam ashashvatam, which means this material world is a temporary place full of miseries. And there's nothing that you can do to make this material world a permanent place, a nice place. The real solution is to leave this material world. Prabhupada commented when they had the so-called moon landing and all these different astronauts that they were interviewed after they went on their different trips in their spacecrafts, and they said that they were looking back to their home on the earth when they were up in space, looking back at their home. Where is Moscow? Where is America? And this is the problem. We're attached to the material world. And this is because of ignorance. Because of ignorance, we're so attached to the material world. And as long as we're attached to the material world, we can never get free from all the problems and experience the real happiness. So when we get transcendental knowledge, we slowly become detached from the material world. Actually, a pure devotee of the Lord looks forward to death, looks forward to the death of the body, with the knowledge that after the death of the body, that the soul will go back home, back to the spiritual world, and be reunited with Krishna in eternal blissful life. So there's no looking back. For a devotee, there's no looking back. No looking back. Because we have knowledge. Okay, so let's read through the purport. Deepa, would you like to start reading the purport? It's a long one, so we'll just interrupt every now and again.
Sorry.
Oh, you got a phone call? Okay, you deal with that then.
Oh, God.
Bob.
Bob, I'm on.
Oh, sorry. That was a spam call. Yeah.
A spam call. Okay.
They're also doing their duty.
Go, Bob. You go first.
That's the job.
Righto. The yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatana. Is that it?
Sanatana
yoga, or external activities performed by the living entity. This yoga
so
has...
just hang on a sec, just explain that. So Sanatana means eternal, so he said eternal activities. So this is Sanatana means eternal. So like I said, the Bhagavad Gita is relevant because it deals with eternal things. It deals with the eternal soul and the eternal activities of the soul. See, the soul is eternal, and the activities of the soul are also eternal. So what are the eternal activities of the soul? Who knows? The soul is eternal. Okay. Yeah. Say, who are you? Okay. You're a soul. Okay. And the soul is eternal. Okay. But the next question is, okay, you know who you are. You're an eternal soul. But what does the soul do? Like you ask people, right? Oh, my name's Fred. What do you do? Oh, I'm a plumber. I'm a electrician. Okay. So what does the soul do? Okay, the soul's eternal, but what does the soul do? Does it
Soul run the body.
Eternal servant of Krishna to serve.
Which is called Bhakti Yoga. So this is another name for Bhakti Yoga, is Sanatana Yoga. Another name. And yoga means to link or connect. So we're always connected in a loving relationship with the Supreme Person. And that's the Sanatana Yoga. So these are the eternal activities, is to be hearing like we're doing now, hearing about Krishna and glorifying Krishna and remembering Krishna and worshipping Krishna and serving Krishna. And there's 9 different processes, 9 different eternal activities of the soul in devotional service. There's 9 different activities. So these activities go on eternally. So as long as the devotee is in the material world, he's doing these activities until the body dies. And then after death, then we'll continue with these same activities in the spiritual world in pure love. So what are we doing now? We're hearing about Krishna, we're glorifying Krishna and remembering Krishna and so forth. And what do we do when we go back to the spiritual world? The same things. These are eternal activities. Whereas now you might be a plumber or an engineer or whatever like that, but those are not eternal activities. Those are temporary. When you go back to the spiritual world, you won't be doing plumbing. You won't be doing, electrical work, and you won't be digging trenches and, doing all these things. These are not eternal activities. But our activities in relationship with Krishna, with the Supreme Person, they are eternal.
Hi. Oh, that's Brett.
We don't need to do anything in the, I was thinking there are going to be, digging there, making more trees and, I don't need to worry about that. Oh, that's great.
Well, even in the spiritual world, the trees are eternal. The trees, there's no need to plant trees. The trees are eternal.
That's it. I'm ready. I'm going to go back.
They're never cut down. And actually, the trees in the spiritual world are known as kalpavriksha. That means they can fulfill all your desires. So, like, you can go to a banana tree in the spiritual world and desire for grapes, and it will give you grapes. And then you could desire mango, and it'll give you mango. Then you could desire, what's your favorite fruit, Bob?
Oh, mate, I love fruit. Let me think. I'd say mango.
Okay, so you could go to a banana tree in the spiritual world, and it'll give you as many mangoes as you wanted, and whatever flavor you wanted, and whatever color you wanted.
Wow.
It looks like
what about you, Michael?
Heaven.
Michael, what's your
You're
favorite fruit?
Now you go to the woods, you can get the mangoes.
What was that, Michael?
Mandarins.
Mandarins.
Okay, it would just give you unlimited mandarins if you wanted the big ones or small ones or with thin skin or no seeds or whatever you desired, it will give you. What about you, Gulshan?
I was thinking that if we're getting all the banana and all that, but how are we gonna eat? We won't be having a body. We have to drop the body and soul will go. How are we gonna taste?
No, in the spiritual world, eating is going on in the spiritual world, but for pleasure, not because you're hungry. There's no hunger in the spiritual world, no thirst, but you eat and you drink, but just for pleasure, the pleasure of Krishna.
How do you eat and drink when you have no body? Is the soul drinking and eating?
You have a spiritual body. You have a spiritual mouth and spiritual teeth and a spiritual arm, spiritual legs, eternal. All bodily parts are there, but they're all eternal. And you're singing and dancing. I mean, they say in the spiritual world, every step is a dance. How can you dance without legs? To dance, you need legs. So obviously you have legs. And you have your hands raised when you dance. So you have arms, definitely have arms. And you sing. It said in the spiritual world, every word is a song. How do you sing without a mouth? So obviously you have a mouth, but it's a spiritual mouth. And you never get toothache, your teeth never fall out, you never get chapped lips like that. You never get wrinkles.
And don't need to go to the doctor.
Never go to the doctor. So everything is there, but everything is pure and everything is eternal. That is the difference. It's the opposite. Just imagine the material world, but just the exact reflection of the material world. Like in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, this material world is compared to an upside down banyan tree. So that is talking about how this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So like I said, everything in the spiritual world, there's eternal forms, eternal bodies. In the material world, they're just temporary bodies. Material world is full of, spiritual world is full of happiness, this is full of suffering. It's just a perversion. there's animals in the spiritual world, there's trees in the spiritual world, there's rivers in the spiritual world, there's parks in the spiritual world. Like that. So yeah, this is the eternal activities is the Sanatana Yoga. So another name is Bhakti Yoga. Okay, so you can continue now, Bob.
Okay. This yoga has two divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice of one's material possessions. The other is called knowledge of self, which is pure spiritual activity. If sacrifice is one material possession, if sacrifice of one's material possessions is not dovetailed for spiritual realization, then such sacrifice becomes material. But one who performs such sacrifices with a spiritual objective or in devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. Am I going all right there?
Very good. Yeah, so two divisions. So this yoga, Sanatana Yoga, has two divisions. One is the sacrifice of material possessions. The other is the sacrifice in knowledge, done in knowledge. So it's saying that is better than just sacrificing our possessions, is to sacrifice for the purpose of achieving knowledge. If you're doing some spiritual activities and you don't become enlightened in knowledge and transcendental knowledge, then you're not really progressing. That's still mundane. It's still material. But the real result of any sacrifice that you do should be that you get more transcendental knowledge. Then you know you're on the right track. Isn't it some people give charities, that they give to so many philanthropic, altruistic activities like that, and they giving so many different things to different people, their possessions. So that's okay, but it's still material if they don't achieve more knowledge. So more better than sacrificing possessions is the sacrifice which results in knowledge. So that's explained here. And the perfection of that knowledge is that we understand our relationship with the Supreme and we engage in devotional service. That's when we know that our knowledge is becoming mature, when we're engaging in our original spiritual activities, which are known as devotional service. If we're not yet engaging in devotional service, means if we don't know that we're a soul and who the Supreme Soul is, and our relationship is of a loving servant of the Supreme, that means our knowledge is not yet complete. So we still have to go further. If we just get stuck up at a certain point, then that's a waste of time, which is very unfortunate. Okay, Deepa, do you want to take up where Bob left off there?
Okay, but one who performs such sacrifices with a spiritual objective or in devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. When we come to spiritual activities, we find that these are also divided into two, namely understanding of one's own self or one's constitutional position and the truth regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who follows the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is can very easily understand these two important divisions of spiritual knowledge. For him,
so you get that? Yeah. That in spiritual knowledge, two divisions. So what are the two divisions of spiritual knowledge?
Knowledge of self.
Knowledge of yourself and knowledge of
Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. So two things that we need to know in spiritual knowledge. We need to know who we are, and we need to know who God is. You know, if you just only know who you are, I'm an eternal soul. I am aham brahmasmi. I am an eternal soul. Okay, very good. But that's not complete. You also need to know who is the Parabrahman, who is the supreme soul. Just knowing that you're a soul is not enough, because then, like I said, okay, you know you're a soul, but what does a soul do? If you don't know what a soul does, and you're not going to know what a soul does, what your activity is, until you know who the supreme soul is, because your activities are related to the supreme soul, that you're a servant of the supreme soul. And that's where you get your bliss from. That's where the pleasure comes in relationships. This is very important to understand. The soul cannot be happy alone. Even say you could get the soul liberated or freed from the material world, and you merge into the spiritual light or whatever, in the Brahman, in the Brahmajyoti. But the soul will still not be happy there, because the true nature of the soul is to engage in loving relationships based on service to the Supreme Soul. And so that is complete knowledge, that we have to understand. I am an eternal soul, and then there is the Supreme Eternal Soul, Krishna, and I am the eternal servant of the Supreme Soul, Krishna, and this will bring me complete perfection of life, complete happiness, complete bliss. And would anyone like to add anything about that? So two divisions, two components. We need to know who we are, the eternal soul, and who God is Krishna, is the supreme personality of Godhead, and that's complete knowledge. Okay, Deepa, do you want to continue?
For him, there is no difficulty in obtaining perfect knowledge of the self as part and parcel of the Lord.
I was just
And
there again. Hang on.
yeah.
Sorry, I keep stopping you, but each point is very important.
No, that's fine.
Each point is very important. So then someone may ask, why do you keep saying that we're a servant of the Lord, of the Supreme Soul? Why do you keep saying that we're a servant of Krishna? I don't want to serve Krishna. So then what would you say to that? If someone said, why do you keep going on about your eternal activity is to serve Krishna? I don't want to serve Krishna eternally. I want to serve myself. I want to serve somebody else. Why should we? How can you logically show that we should serve Krishna? What's the reasoning? What's the logic for that? And it's given in this sentence.
Because we're part of him.
Yeah. Our nature is to serve because we're part of Krishna. That's why. It's very simple. What is the nature of your hand? What is the hand?
Feeding
It's just serve us.
Yeah, us meaning the body, right? So,
Yeah.
but why, if we would ask, why should the hand serve the body? Why can't the hand act independent to the body? Why does the hand have to serve the body?
The body, and body will nourish the hand.
Because
The
it's
body
part of
nourishes
the
the hand.
body.
Yeah. The only function of the hand is to serve the whole body. Why? Because it's part of the body. The function of the part is to serve the whole. The function of the part is to cooperate with the whole. If the hand thinks, why do I keep putting the food in the mouth? Why do I keep putting the food in the mouth? I just want to enjoy it independently. I'm not going to put the samosa and the halva and the rice and the bread in the mouth anymore. I'm just going to eat it myself. So then if the hand tries to, you try that, please try that at home. Try just squeezing the food and not putting it in the mouth and see what happens.
Just
eventually, will the hand get any nourishment by refusing to surrender the food to the body? No, it won't. So, and will the whole body get any benefit?
No.
So it's lose-lose. It's lose-lose. The real thing is when the hand cooperates with the whole body for the purpose of serving the whole body. And you know, you if the head gets itchy, you scratch it, or you need to put food in the mouth, or you need to pick up something, carry something, lift something. So it's always cooperating with the whole body, and then the body benefits and the hand benefits. But and when it's connected, when the hands connect to the body, how valuable is it?
Very.
Would you say the hand is worth $100,
It's priceless.
$1,000, $1 million connected with your body? If you cut the hand off the body, how much is it worth?
Nothing.
Nothing. Think about that. When the hand's connected to the whole, it's you can't measure how valuable it is. If you separate this from the whole, it's worth nothing. So also when we're connected with a loving relationship with the Supreme, our life has meaning, it has value, it has substance, it has purpose. And when we're separated from the Supreme, we're useless. And we wonder why we become dysfunctional. And we become depressed. And we get stress and everything. It's because of that we've been cut off. And we've cut ourselves off. It's not that Krishna's cut us off. That we are trying to cut ourselves off. But actually you can never cut, the good news is you can never cut yourself off, because we're an eternal part of Krishna. We can never truly be disconnected. Only in our mind we're not connected. So that's like an illusion that's been created due to our mind and our false ego, that we think we're not connected to the Lord. Actually, we are connected with the Lord. We couldn't live for a moment if we're not connected with the Lord. We're always in the Lord's energy. We can never escape that. Like the Lord's energy, like what do we need every day to exist?
Fresh air.
Yeah. Where does the fresh air come from?
From the Supreme.
From the Supreme. Bhumira po nalo vayu. So vayu means air. So air is one of the energies of the Supreme. What else do we need?
Sunshine.
Yeah, so that also comes from the Lord.
And the prasadam.
Like,
food, water.
we need food. That comes from the earth. That earth also is an energy of the Lord. So we're always in the Lord. We're always connected with the Lord. We cannot escape. We cannot get away from the Lord. But only in our consciousness we're forgetful of the Lord. So we're always dependent on Him. We're always part and parcel of Him. That's why it doesn't just say we're part of the Lord. It also says part and
Parcel.
Parcel means together, right? It's interesting that Prabhupada said that. He didn't just say we're part of God. He said we're part and parcel. That means you're part. Yes, I understand what part is, but parcel means you're always together.
Together.
We can never be separated. Only we think we're separated, but we're not separated. He's still maintaining us. We're still within His energy. There's nothing other than the energy of the Lord. That's why when a person's fully Krishna conscious, he realizes there's nothing other than the Lord and the Lord's energy. Therefore, I have to surrender. I should surrender. There's no escape. Everything is the Lord. Even I am part of the Lord. I'm not anything else than the Lord. My body is made up of the Lord. My mind, my intelligence, my soul, everything is part of the Lord. Therefore, with that full knowledge comes the conclusion, well, I suppose there's no other option than just I should surrender and accept that I'm part and parcel of the Lord, and I should serve the Lord. And, well, there's so much happiness coming from that anyway. So why not? So that conclusion, one slowly, when we become mature in transcendental knowledge, we come to that conclusion that we should just surrender to the Lord. And normally we have that idea that surrender is a very bad thing. So we surrender to some very bad person, some very evil person. He's very powerful and very evil, and we can't defeat him. He's going to defeat us, so we have to surrender. But it's not like that with Krishna. Krishna is the most kind, loving, merciful, fair, compassionate, all good qualities. He's the very most wonderful person. So there's nothing wrong to surrender to Krishna. There's no harm going to come to us by surrendering to Krishna. Does that make sense? Would anyone like to say anything about that? All good?
No.
Okay. Yeah, Deepa, you can keep going.
And such understanding is beneficial for such a person can easily understand the transcendental activities of the Lord. In the beginning of this chapter, the transcendental activities of the Lord were discussed by the Supreme Lord himself. One who does not understand the instructions of the Gita is faithless and is to be considered to be misusing. Misusing the fragmental independences awarded to him by the Lord. In spite of such instructions, one who does not understand the real nature of the Lord as the eternal, blissful, all-knowing personality of Godhead is certainly fool number one. Ignorance can be removed by gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to the demigods. Sacrifice to Brahman, sacrifice in celibacy, in household life, in controlling the senses, in practicing mystic yoga, in penance, in foregoing material possessions, in studying the Vedas, and in partaking of the social institutions called, that's too hard. Varnashrama Dharma.
Yeah. So we'll stop there. That's a lot to digest.
Yes.
So it's just gone through a whole list here of different sacrifices, which we talked about in previous talks. So all these different sacrifices are there because we're at different levels of consciousness. We have different desires. We're differently evolved in our spiritual evolution. Although there's only one ultimate objective, only one ultimate goal, the Supreme Person. But because we're at all different levels and we have different conditionings and material nature, our modes of material nature, like we've talked about the modes of ignorance and goodness and passion. So because we have different conditionings in those three different modes of nature, so therefore different sacrifices are recommended according to where we're at. We're going to be attracted to a particular kind of sacrifice. Some people are attracted to practicing a sacrifice in celibacy. Some people like that, to be like a celibate monk. Michael's nodding his head there. He's attracted to that kind of sacrifice, and that's a big sacrifice, isn't it? Because one of the biggest attractions in the material world is sex life. So to give up sex life, between that attraction between male and female, that's a big sacrifice. Sacrifice, of course, means giving up something. So that's, and also in household life, there's sacrifices that was mentioned, household life. So what sacrifices you could make in household life? There's also that you're living with a woman, or from a woman's point of view, living with a man, but you've got to try to control yourself. So not that you just indulge enjoying with the opposite sex every moment possible. But no, you deny those animalistic pleasures and just try to regulate your enjoyment. Like, okay, I'm living with a man, living with a woman, but I'm only going to have sex for producing children, and I'm going to try to make those children Krishna conscious. So that's a sacrifice. You could be having sex every night or whatever like that, and just eating and
for sense gratification, no sense gratification.
Yeah, well, you're reducing it. Well, I mean, not that there's none, but you reduce it, you control it, you keep it in control, not out of control. And you could just be, your wife could be cooking up lovely food and you're just eating it like a pig. No, but you're going to offer that in the house. You're going to have a little temple in the house, and you're going to offer all the food before you eat it. You're going to offer it to the Supreme, and then you're going to eat the remnants of that, the sacrificial offerings. So that's a sacrifice. You didn't have to do that. You got free choice, but you're using your free choice to make a sacrifice that, even though you're in a family situation, which there's a lot of enjoyment possible, but you're regulating that, you're controlling that. Or if you're by yourself, you're practicing celibacy, and you're trying to connect with the Lord. So there's all different ways. So mentioned here studying the Vedas. Some people are into philosophy. So they like reading books and like that. So that's a kind of sacrifice they're making. They could be doing something else, but they're giving up all those, sex, drugs, and rock and roll to study philosophy because they're searching for the truth. Some people are like that. They're not ready to accept devotional service or Sanatana Yoga, but they like studying books and researching and, getting into philosophy and debating and arguing and, I think this is the truth, and no, I think this is the truth, so there's people like that. So these are all different sacrifices because people are at different levels. Not everyone's ready to fully surrender, because not everyone has complete knowledge. We all have different amounts of ignorance. Some people have 10% ignorance, 50% ignorance, 75% ignorance, 99% ignorance, so we're at different stages. Therefore, there's different kinds of sacrifices to allow everyone to make progress from whatever level they're at. Okay, I'm 90% ignorant, so I'm attracted to this sacrifice, but that'll help you. And maybe after that, you'll become 80% ignorant. And then I'll do another sacrifice, and then you'll be 70% ignorant. And then finally, when all the ignorance is gone, then you'll surrender and be Krishna conscious, engage in Sanatana Yoga. Bhakti yoga, where after all the ignorance is gone, you'll fully surrender. But even before that point, there's so many different sacrifices to help to bring us closer to our original life, our real life as a loving part and parcel of the Supreme. And so all these different options are given in the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada just mentioned that if someone doesn't accept the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, then they are known as a faithless person. They are known as they have no faith. So faith is important. That, okay, I don't know exactly what's the truth or not, but I'm just going to try this. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but let me just try. It means you have a little bit of faith just to try. I'm going to make an experiment. I'm just going to try and follow what it's saying here in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm just going to try to follow what the spiritual master has told me. The spiritual master told me to chant Hare Krishna. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but let me just try it for 2 weeks. And let me just see what happens. But if someone says, no, I don't believe in you, I don't believe in the Bhagavad Gita, I don't believe in the spiritual master, I'm not going to follow any of this, this is a load of rubbish, this is just mythology, this is just superstition, this is just Hindu stuff, this is not for me, like that, then they can't progress. That person can't progress. Then they're very unfortunate. And like Prabhupada's saying here, there's certainly fool number one. Fool number one. And yet amazingly, those people, they don't want to have any faith in the guru or in the scriptures. But they have faith in. Is it that they are faithless in everything?
They have faith in their job.
Yeah, they have faith that, oh, if I go to this stupid office or factory for 6 days a week, 15 hours a day, I'm going to be happy. What's that? Isn't it? They have faith that if I do this job, I'm going to be happy, that I'm going to make lots of money and people are going to like me, and I'm going to have a brilliant home and a great family, and I'm going to live happily ever after with my wife and kids, and we're going to walk off into the sunset and everything's going to be rosy and everything. And does it work out like that?
No.
Generally not. We have faith that someone that left India to come to Australia, they had faith that I'm going to be so happy in Australia, but often they're not, or someone that did a course, PhD or something like that, that if I get a PhD, I'm going to be happy. We put the point is everyone puts faith in something. So we're always starting off and we don't really know whether it's going to work or not, but we have to have some faith in it to try it. So the point is, well, we're already putting our faith in so many things and we haven't been successful. So why don't we just try this? I mean, it's been around for 5,000 years and a lot of people have achieved very amazing results from following the Bhagavad Gita. So maybe it can also bring me some good results. I mean, how long does your newspaper last and your magazine last? Just for a day or a few days. This has been around for 5,000 years. It can't be that bad. Or that spiritual master, he looks really happy. He's got so much knowledge. He can answer all my questions and he looks really happy. I've never seen him depressed or stressed out. Maybe if I follow what he's saying, maybe I can also be like him. The thing is, we should be sensible. What's wrong with putting faith in a very tried and tested process? Even though it is tried and tested, you still don't want to put faith in it. Then, like Prabhupada says, full number one, like that. And yet such a person will put faith in some silly thing that never works, Oh, if I'm rich and famous, I'm going to be happy. You show me some examples of that. Please tell me. You give me some examples of people that are rich and famous and everything that are completely happy. They have no problems. We find out this rich and famous person, he took a drug overdose and he died. This rich and famous one, he just got divorced. Like that. This one, he's got cancer. Like that. So why we put our faith in all those things? Do you understand what Prabhupada's saying here?
Yep.
But this is not blind faith. It's not recommending blind faith. No, all along the way, we're being given knowledge. So the choices we're making to do some activity, like chanting, for example, we're not just blindly chanting. We're given so much knowledge. What's the benefits of chanting? What is this chant? What's the benefits of it? What's the reason behind it? How does it work? So it's very scientific. So it's not that you're just being asked to put your faith blindly in something, but you're given so much knowledge. So much knowledge. So why do you think that people don't want to put their faith in the scriptures and the spiritual teachers? What could be some reasons?
Ignorance would have to be one.
Yeah, and that's pointed out here. Ignorance. Yeah.
It's depend on the association. If they have a right association, they will start having a faith. If they're having the wrong association, how are they going to build the faith? So it's association start from a family or a home. What the parents are teaching that, and then eventually if they come to the temple and you have a right association, and then you're building a faith. And if you are hanging around with the people with the drinking and smoking, how are you going to build the faith in there?
Yeah. Yeah, association is very important. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it explains, I think the 7th chapter, text 27, which we can skip over to that for a moment. 7th chapter, text 27.
What text was it, sorry?
27 of the 7th chapter.
7th chapter, right.
7th chapter, text 27.
Yeah, mate, I'll say 7th. So that's 8.
Oh, so, about
Page 339.
339.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can find, I can hardly see it. 339.
So here, O sign of Bharata, O conqueror foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, so this is dualities, right? Duality means two. So what are the two things? One of the two things is desire, and the other one is hate. So desire for what? Prabhupada says in the purport, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Person of Godhead. So what is the desire that we all have? To be God.
Krishna.
To be Krishna. And because we have that desire to be Krishna, we hate Krishna. Because we want his position, so we hate him. So we desire to be him and we hate him. We're envious of him. So that's one of the main reasons what we can understand is why the vast majority of persons in the material world have no faith in Krishna consciousness. They have no faith in Bhagavad Gita, no faith in his representative of Krishna, the spiritual master, because they want to be Krishna and because they hate Krishna. Therefore, they have no faith. I don't want to hear about Krishna. Don't talk to me about Krishna. And because deep down in the heart, that soul is rebellious and doesn't want, even though it's part and parcel, it's the hand, but it doesn't want to serve the whole body. Oh, I want to be the whole body. It's like the hand. I don't want to be the hand. I want to be the body. It's like that. I don't want to be the hand. You're a hand, but I don't want to be the hand. I want to be the whole body. Then I can enjoy eating the food. I don't want to feed the body. I want to eat the food. It's like that. Rebel hand. But that's not what we are. That's not what we are. There's what we don't realize. There's so much happiness in being part of Krishna and being the servant of Krishna. There's no need to try to become Krishna to be happy. We can be fully happy just serving Krishna. In fact, we can understand from the scriptures, there's more happiness in serving Krishna than even being Krishna. And how do we know that? Because one time Krishna took the position as his servant. And who's that? Who is it that where Krishna took the position of his servant to taste the pleasure of serving Krishna? That was Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Is Krishna in the mood of a servant? And what he was finding, there's more pleasure, more happiness in serving Krishna than actually what Krishna is experiencing as the Supreme Person. So the ultimate happiness is in serving with love, and that's called bhakti. But this is deep down in the core of the heart. This is very difficult to overcome, is this desire to be God and this envy or hatred of God. These are the original dualities of the material world. However, that this process of Krishna consciousness, somehow or other, if we can just chant Krishna's names and associate with Krishna's devotees, take Krishna's prasadam, hear about Krishna, somehow or other overcome these inhibitions in the heart, if we can just start somehow or other, then this desire, false desire to be Krishna, and this hatred of Krishna will gradually go away. This will gradually go away and be replaced by that original pure love for the Supreme. Does that make sense? So if you don't get down, if you think, well, there's not many people that have faith in the Bhagavad Gita or in bhakti. There's, sometimes we may have doubts ourselves that not many people are doing this, but there's a reason for that, and this is the reason. There's so much ignorance, as we've been talking about, and also so much envy of Krishna, and people want to be God, and that's the reason. So don't expect everyone to take to the Sanatana yoga or bhakti yoga. It's actually very rare. It's very rare. And Krishna also explains that in the Bhagavad Gita, that out of thousands of people, hardly one person will try for making their life perfect. And out of thousands of people that are trying to make their life perfect, hardly one will make their life perfect. So that verse is telling us it's very rare. But we're very lucky, even though it's ordinarily very rare to achieve this bhakti yoga or Sanatana yoga, although it's ordinarily very rare, one in millions, due to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, getting back to Krishna coming as Lord Chaitanya, he's very kind, and he's distributing this love for Krishna very cheaply, very easily. So ordinarily, it's very rare, hardly anyone achieves it. But because Lord Chaitanya came 500 years ago, he's made it very accessible to even the masses of people, and many people can achieve this pure love for Krishna by his grace. So we are amongst those lucky persons to come after Lord Chaitanya. So we should just take his mercy that's easily available, and then all our hearts will be cleansed of all this desire and hate. Okay, so let's continue. Michael, would you like to continue reading, Michael? So we're back to the end of the 4th chapter again.
Yep. So I'm not real sure where we're up to.
All of these are known as sacrifice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of these are known as sacrifice, and all of them are based on regulated action. But within all these activities, the important factor is self-realization. One who seeks that objective is the real student of Bhagavad Gita, but one who doubts the authority of Krishna falls back. One is therefore advised to study Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture under a bona fide spiritual master with service and surrender. A bona fide spiritual master is in the disciplic succession from time eternal, and he does not deviate at all from the instructions of the Supreme Lord as they are imparted millions of years ago to the Sun God, whom the instructions of Bhagavad Gita had come down to the earthly kingdom. One should therefore follow the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is expressed in the Gita itself, and beware of self-interested people after personal aggrandizement to deviate others from the actual path. The Lord is definitely the Supreme Person, and his activities are transcendental. One who understands this is a liberated person from the very beginning of his study of Bhagavad Gita.
So So that was mentioned in the beginning of the 4th chapter, how this transcendental knowledge is passed down. It's passed down from the Lord through this disciplic succession. It means the Lord teaches a devotee, that becomes the first disciple. That disciple becomes a guru, and he passes it to his disciple. That disciple becomes a guru, and then he passes it to his disciple. So that's called disciplic succession. So the first one mentioned in the beginning of the 4th chapter was when Krishna spoke the knowledge to the sun god. The sun god spoke it to his son, Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku spoke it to Manu, like that. No. Krishna spoke it to the sun god spoke it to Manu spoke it to Ikshvaku, and then from there it passed down. And so that's how the knowledge passes down through the disciplic succession. So that point is made that we should serve a spiritual master and surrender to the spiritual master. Why? Why should we surrender to them? Why should we serve them? What makes them so special, so important? Because they're directly connected with the Lord. They're directly connected to the Lord. Like it's mentioned here, they don't deviate from the instructions of the Supreme Lord. That's the significance of a bona fide spiritual teacher. They don't deviate from the instructions of the Lord. There's no difference whether you heard directly from the Lord or whether you heard from the spiritual master. It's the same instructions. There's no difference between what the spiritual master says and what Krishna's saying. One time, one person was praising Prabhupada. Oh, you have spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. You have written so many books. You have established so many temples. You have made so many disciples. Prabhupada said, I don't take credit for any of that. None of that's my credit. If you want to give me credit, I'll take one credit. I didn't deviate 1 inch from the instructions of my spiritual master. That's what makes Prabhupada bona fide. That he is just so closely following the instructions of his spiritual master and repeating those same things without changing it. That's why he said Bhagavad Gita as it is, which means the words of God as it is. He didn't change it. That's what makes him a bona fide spiritual master. He hasn't deviated from that line of disciplic succession. So therefore, there's no difference. Hearing from Prabhupada is the same as hearing from Krishna. And Prabhupada here is also warning us about hearing about Krishna and hearing from the Bhagavad Gita from persons that aren't in a disciplic succession. Like he's mentioned, they're just interested in self-aggrandizement, which basically means in pleasing themselves. There's many people that step up on the pedestal and preach the gospel or whatever, but they're not in a disciplic session, and they're just putting forward their own agenda, putting forward their own portfolio, and they're misguided, and whoever listens to them becomes also misguided. So that's called in the scriptures the blind leading the blind. If a blind person leads other blind people, where will they end up?
In the
ditch, in the gutter. So there's a warning there. Prabhupada gives a warning. Don't just blindly follow anyone. You make sure the person is a bona fide spiritual master. And when you find a bona fide spiritual master, what should you do? You should serve them. You should surrender. Surrender means inquire submissively from them. Surrender means surrender to their instructions, follow their instructions. Just like Prabhupada said, chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day. So if we surrender, what does that mean? Then we'll do that. Yes. That he said, don't eat meat, don't have intoxication, don't have illicit sex. So if we surrender, what does that mean? You'll do that. You'll follow that. That's surrender. If we don't do that, that means we're not surrendering. But at least if, because of our past habits, we might find it difficult to do those things. So that's okay. But at least you have to try. At least surrendering means you have to try to do that. Sometimes the instructions of the spiritual master gives a disciple are very difficult to follow. Like when Prabhupada first met his spiritual master in 1922. So he was a young man, he just got married. What instruction did his guru give him? He said, you're an intelligent young man. You should travel around the world and preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English. This will do good for you and this will do good for everyone. Did Prabhupada carry out that instruction straight away?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Not straight away.
No. It took 23, no, what am I talking about? That was 1922, 1965. So 33 years later, he stepped foot in the foreign countries. You know, but he said, I was always thinking about his instructions, how I can do it. It's so difficult. So difficult. He had all of his family duties, so he completed all his family duties, but he was preparing. He started writing. He started translating scriptures from Sanskrit to English, even when he was in India. He started trying to spread Krishna consciousness there. He started the Back to Godhead magazines there in the Second World War. He started Back to Godhead magazines and distributing those. So he was preparing himself because he had this very high instruction that he felt, I'm incapable to do this. But he still tried and he kept trying and he didn't give up and eventually got there and eventually became so successful, as we know. And like he said, what is my success? I didn't deviate 1 inch from the instructions of my spiritual master. So you might not be able to carry out everything perfectly in the very beginning, but you're not faithless about it. You have faith in it, but you're having difficulties to follow it out because of whatever our conditioning or whatever is. But you have to try. That's the thing. You have to try your best. Try your best. Like in the beginning, maybe we can't chant 16 rounds every day, so chant 1 round a day. And then you get good at that for a while, and then chant 4 rounds a day. And you get good at that for a while and chant 8 rounds a day. And you get good at 12 rounds a day. And then eventually you get to 16. And then after some time, you might want to chant more than 16. Because it's a minimum 16, not maximum. So some people, like for example, some people, when they retire and that from all their worldly duties, they might chant 64 rounds a day. Even more than that. Or if they go to India for a holiday, they might chant that every day while they're there, like that. So we just try our best. Try our best. And he also mentioned of all the sacrifices, the main thing is to come to the point of self-realization. So any kind of spiritual process we're on, whatever it might be, karma yoga, jnana yoga, stanga yoga, bhakti yoga, but the main point we want to come to is self-realization. What is self-realization?
What do you mean? Like knowing yourself?
No, it's like I'm not a body, I'm a soul.
Yeah. So the self-realization is to know that I'm not this body, this material body. I'm not Indian, I'm not Australian, I'm not Kiwi, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm not black, I'm not white, I'm not young, I'm not old. I am an eternal soul. And not just that, remember, what else do you have to know in self-realization? Okay, you know...
And I'm the part and the parcel of Krishna.
Yeah, and you have to know you're part and parcel of Krishna. And what is the duty of the part?
An
To serve
eternal
the whole.
servant.
Serve Krishna.
To serve the whole, to serve Krishna. So that's self-realization. That's complete self-realization. Some people know that they're a soul, at least intellectually, philosophically, but until they've their relationship with the Supreme and serving the Supreme, the self-realization is not complete. That's not complete. Isn't it? Just like your life without activities, without anything to do, is not complete, is it? Okay, how long can you float around for? You have to do something. You know, so just knowing that you're a soul is not enough. Sooner or later, you've either got to come to the point whether you develop your relationship with Krishna, or you're going to come back to the material platform, and that's what often happens. If you don't make it to full self-realization of your relationship with Krishna, then those people, they come back to the mundane platform again. And we see that, you know. I just heard someone came here today, and he told, because he follows Buddhism, and he told me this high up Buddhist monk, you know, because their life is a lot about detachment, and it's quite dry. There's not much positive things there, and there's definitely no relationship with Krishna or anything involved with that process. So he mentioned that he got to the point where he was drinking 60 cups of tea and coffee every day.
Oh.
So that means he's come back to the mundane platform again. You know, and how can you do a spiritual practice being so intoxicated, you know, and taking so much stimulants, material stimulants? You know, what's going to happen to your spiritual realization or your detachment? That's not detachment, that's attachment. He's become attached to tea and coffee. So if you just try to, you know, be detached from the world, but you don't become attached to Krishna, something better, then eventually what's going to happen? You're going to go back. You're going to go backwards. You're going to become attached to the world again. So Krishna consciousness is the complete understanding of self-realization, and it's very safe. Because when you come to realize Krishna, your relationship with Krishna, you become so joyful, so happy. And your day is full of happiness. And you're hearing about Krishna, enjoying that, and you're chanting Krishna's names and enjoying that, and you're taking Krishna's sanctified food, prasadam, and you're enjoying that, and you're with Krishna's loving devotees, and you're enjoying that company, and you're just enjoying everything. And there's no going back, because it's just so much a joyful process. When you're tasting something so good, why would you go back to something that has a bad taste? Doesn't it? Anyone has any realization about that? Like now, would we go back to playing with our teddy bears and dolls anymore and our Lego set? No, because we have more higher habits now, and we have better things to do. Why would we go back to those things we did when we were so much younger, you know? Does that make sense? Would anyone like to say anything about that?
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But very important, we should be getting that higher taste. Not just intellectually know about it, but we should be getting that higher taste. So taking every opportunity to hear about Krishna and to chant and with other devotees associate nicely and really try to enjoy the association of devotees and this process of devotional service. And then there's no falling back from that. Okay, so that's the time we've come to. What did you think, Michael? Was there anything that comes to mind that would you like to say anything?
No, I just think it's very interesting. I love all Sanskrit, and
Okay.
I haven't really had a good look at the Bhagavad Gita. I will now, and it's just very good.
Oh, that's nice. Have you had any contact with Sanskrit before now?
Yes, I teach yoga, and that's how I come to this through Bob. And I teach Iyengar yoga, so it has a lot of, and I study the Yoga Sutras. So that's what
Patanjali, oh yes, yes,
That's
yes.
what I've been doing for 25 years, studying the Yoga Sutras.
Wow. Okay.
I've just recently retired, and so I want to carry out one of the main things of the Yoga Sutras, to have been God.
What was that? What did you say? I missed that bit, the last bit.
I haven't got any God in my life. I haven't got God in my life, so I want to have
Yes.
God in my life.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's very nice.
We're heading off to the farm. I'm taking him up to the farm, I think next Monday, I think.
Oh, lovely. I'm sure they have a great time there. It's a very, very spiritual atmosphere there.
Yep, and he's a man of the land. He used to work the land.
Oh, yes. Wow, that's a great foundation. Close to nature, nature lover.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I hope you have a lovely time there, and thank you for joining us today, Michael.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Thank you.
Oh, good. Pleasure.
Make it regular, Michael.
It's deeper.
Yeah.
Well, if no one else has anything they'd like to say, we'll leave it till next week. Lovely to see you all.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Thanks.
Hope you
Hare
have,
Krishna.
have a wonderful
So,
week.
Hari
Pleasure.
Bol.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Take care.
Yeah.